So it started out with Barry Bonds, and then, like I said, I was able to use a lot of that for trade bait. But something that Marshall Fogel said before, you collect the guys that are statues, legends of the game. So whether it's Willie Mays or Pete Rose, or whether it's football, it's Tom Brady or Barry Sanders, or, hockey, Wayne Gretzky, or, basketball, Michael Jordan. Try to stick to those legendary guys that will stand the test of time.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Game Used Podcast by Resolution Photo Matching. I'm your host, Will Hamilton. Before we get started, a quick reminder that Resolution Photo Matching is the leader in game use authentication. A ResMatch provides the highest level of accuracy, credibility, and value to your memorabilia. Visit resolutionphotomatching.com or email info@resphotomatching.com for a quote to pinpoint your piece of sports history. Well, I'm excited to welcome on today's guest. He's someone that has his own personal collection that we'll dive into, and he's also spent years helping collectors protect their most valuable sports memorabilia through specialized insurance. Talking about Dan Lorber, the founder of Stadium Insurance. Great to have you on the show, Dan. How goes it?
Good. Thanks for having me, Will. Look forward to speaking to you today, and appreciate all that you guys do for the hobby.
Yeah. Excited to dive into your collection. And I know I teased Stadium Insurance. That's going to be an interesting dynamic. Something that we haven't touched on much on the show, but something that's really valuable for, these pieces of memorabilia and sports cards as well. But I figured to begin the conversation, do you want to just start by how you got interested in the hobby to begin with?
Sure. Yeah, no. So it started out like all the rest of us, where started out collecting cards as a kid and saw that they were, mass produced. It was during the junk wax era, and wanted to do something a little different, and got into autographs shortly after that and collected signed memorabilia. Again, I started to see the long-term vision of this is where, guys were sitting in a room signing thousands of autographs, and just wanted to collect something that was a little more unique and a little more limited, where I thought things would appreciate over time. I discovered the game use space and game use bats. It started out with game use bats and then advanced on to game use jerseys, gloves, cleats, batting helmets, the whole works. And later discovered photo matching, which brought a whole nother level to the game use space for me. You can actually pinpoint when someone actually used this particular item, and it adds a tremendous amount of value to the collectible, because you can do it to a significant event, whether it's a milestone or a special moment in history. So really enjoyed the game use space, and amassed quite a collection over the last 20 years.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. Yeah. Like a lot of us having started with cards almost as the gateway drug to the rest of collecting. Do you remember your first game use item that kind of bridged the gap?
It was probably a Barry Bonds game use Louisville Slugger bat. And then, I was a big fan of the San Francisco Giants, and Barry Bonds was a man here in the Bay Area, must see TV or must see in person. And I started collecting his bats and started learning the traits of his bats, how he tarred his bats, where the use was on the bats. And I had collected about 100 game used bats of Barry Bonds over the years. And then later on got into photo matching and photo matched several of them to important milestones over time.
Very cool. Do you still have all of those bats? Or are you kind of constantly, your collection's ever changing? How does that work for you?
It's ever changing. I used a lot of those bats as trade bait for other collectibles over time. I think a lot of us collectors, you have something for a while and it's time to move on to what you think is bigger and better pieces. So I've consolidated my collection quite a bit and traded away a lot of those bats. But over time, kept my favorite pieces and built a collection, expanding into jerseys and helmets and football jerseys and other collectibles.
Very cool. You mentioned obviously Barry Bonds being one of the main players that you collect. Are you going after players? Are you going after teams? Sounds like maybe a Bay Area sports fan. What is your collection range from?
So it started out with Barry Bonds, and then, like I said, I was able to use a lot of that for trade bait. But something that Marshall Fogel said before, you collect the guys that are statues, legends of the game. So whether it's Willie Mays or Pete Rose, or whether it's football, it's Tom Brady or Barry Sanders, or, hockey, Wayne Gretzky, or, basketball, Michael Jordan. Try to stick to those legendary guys that will stand the test of time. record holders, Hall of Famers. That's kind of where my focus is.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Are you trying to get out or get in on some guys that you think will become, the statues later on in their career, invest young, anything like that?
Well, the crazy thing in this space is that the young guys, their stuff goes for more than the Hall of Famers. It seems like the value is already in there. So there's not much speculation, or it's worth taking the risk, because these young guys, you're already paying top dollar for their items. Just it's a supply and demand thing. So I tend to find myself buying a lot of more of the vintage stuff. Whether it's like the Pete Rose, the Ricky Hendersons, the Willie Mays, Reggie Jackson, guys like that, where you can pick them up for the same price as a modern day star.
Yeah, no. What jumps to mind is the NBA jerseys, the rookies like Cooper Flag, the ones we're seeing with Con Knuppel, some of these other guys. Like everyone is kind of chasing that edge. It's like there's no longer an advantage there because everyone has the same idea to jump in before they become a household name.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And the scarcity on this older stuff is, guys would wear a jersey for the entire year or for several months at a time. And I think you guys see that a lot on the photo matching side, where today these guys are switching out jerseys every game or bats every game. I mean, it's easier to photo match because you know the particular game they were used, but the wear on these jersey or the scarcity isn't, to me, as quite as scarce as it was for stuff that was pre 2000, like in the 1990s, the 1980s. But yeah, I mean, so I try to stick to stuff that shows a lot of use and has been worn over, a period of time, because then you could attach that to milestones or home runs or hits, or it makes the hunt a little easier as far as photo matching, because it's an array of, several weeks or homestands that they use a particular bat.
Absolutely. And we find, it's kind of similar, the evolving use over time. When we're going back, we're looking at maybe the final date it was used, maybe the date the bat was broken, and you can go back and you can see it all, like this date is when this ball mark occurred. You can see all the changes as you kind of go back in time, and maybe a bat was only used for a week before it broke, but batting helmets or jerseys could be used for half a season. So that's interesting to see how those characteristics develop and change over time. But yeah, we don't get it as much nowadays, and I don't quite understand it. I mean, it's one thing for a jersey, but shoes, cleats. Don't you kind of like what you like? Don't you want to use that if you like your pair of shoes for more games? But a lot of guys are just use it once or use a certain pair in warm up, switch to one of the games, and yeah, they don't have the same amount of use that those other items did in pre 2000s.
Right. No, I agree with you. Another thing is I collect game used gloves as well. And the reason I do is a lot of these players use, I mean, you see it on your end that these guys use these gloves, for an entire season or a half a season or several seasons. And like I always say, if you can't photo match a glove, it was never used because, guys are attached to their gloves. They get comfortable with one, and they'll have a gamer and they'll have a backup glove they use for BP. But gloves are really unique and show a ton of wear and very personal to the athlete. And, that's one of the reasons I try to find stuff that has a ton of use.
Yeah, yeah. Gloves are a great item. That's a good point. It's almost like your baby, especially if you're an infielder too, the way you manicure that thing, rub it up with oil and everything. That's a lot of investment. So I can see why those don't get subbed out very often.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I have a couple gloves handy if you want me to show them to you.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be really cool to see.
So one glove here was, I have, I don't know if you could see it here. This is, Barry Bonds World Series glove, which you see.
Oh, wow.
But it was photo match to the World Series from 2002. And kind of a cool piece, shows a ton of wear, easy to photo match, use it through the whole 2002 season. Another cool glove I picked up was Cal Ripken's glove. Cal Ripken had auctioned off his collection through Golden Auctions, and he had about 10 game used gloves that he consigned to that auction house, which came with a personal letter from him and when they were used, and he marked them with the year. But here's Cal Ripken's 1988 game used glove used throughout the season, and ton of wear, very cool. And just very personal item to him, but it's photo matched and you can't go wrong with that. I mean, if you play 20 seasons, there's 20 gloves, so one of 20. So I find the gloves that are great collectibles, and I think they'll stand the test of time because there's not too many people that could have one because it's limited to the number of seasons he's played.
Yeah. Yeah, those are things of beauty. I mean, they look to still be in great condition. When you're, how do you display those? Do you have a case that you keep them in? I know for bats, it's encouraged to kind of let the bats breathe. How particular are you about that kind of stuff?
I just keep it in a safe. You have a gun safe with, all the smaller items. The bigger items you have to store a little differently, such as bats and jerseys. But, you know, my wife and 3 dogs won't let me hang up any of this stuff in the house. So it's kind of confined to a safer storage. But, every now and then, take them out, you look at what you have and enjoy them.
Yeah, they don't give you a man cave or an office or something.
No, I'm afraid not. Not yet. I got to wait until they move out.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
that's true. There you go. Well, do you have an item that comes to mind as being most meaningful, whether it be just because of the player or maybe the journey it took to acquire the item?
yeah, I have a couple. I have a bat from the 2001 season where Barry Bonds broke the all-time single-season home run record. And what makes that bat special to me, for one, it's the Sam bat with the crisscross tape pattern that everybody's looking for. But the cool thing about it is you used to hit home runs 52 and 53. And it means a lot to me being here from San Francisco. Willie Mays had the single season Giants record with 52 home runs. And so this is the bat he used to tie that record and pass that record. And I was fortunate enough to pick it up. Here, I don't know if I could show it to you, but it's a Sam bat in which Barry marked it with the home run numbers on there.
Oh,
Again,
beautiful.
Sam bat, and then the crisscross tape pattern that he used. And these Sam bats are something else. Once you have them in hand, they're just beautiful looking bats. The lacquer, the heavy lacquer on them, the two-tone. Have the dates on the end in the cup. But yeah, this is one of my favorite bats that I wouldn't be able to part with anytime soon. But that was a big moment to follow him that year when he was chasing the all-time single season home run record to surpass Mark McGwire. But because it was passing Willie Mays' godfather, it's kind of a special bat to me that I own. Another special item I have is 1987 road jersey that he wore during the beginning of the 1987 season. And funny story about that is I had owned it for about 15 to 20 years and couldn't photo match it at all. And then one day I noticed a crease on one of the letters, and I was looking at a photo and it's like, wait, it has that same crease on there. And then once you have a starting point, it's easy to go back and find the rest of the things that match up. And so it just shows you, like, sometimes on your first glance or your first look at photos or research, you might not find something, but like I said, it took 20 years to find the photo. And then all of a sudden, once I found that photo, I was able to find several more because I knew exactly what to look for in the photo.
Yeah, you get that first puzzle piece in place.
Yeah. So that was a big score for me. And that's one of my favorite pieces because that's the earliest Barry Bonds game 1 jersey I've seen that's been photo matched. And like I said, following his career, that's an important piece to me. But I have other jerseys I enjoy. I have Ricky Henderson's MVP jersey I'm looking at over my shoulder, and I have a Barry Sanders Game 1 jersey. I think there's only like 12 of those known to exist in the public in collections. So those things mean a lot to me, whether it's MVP year or just the scarcity of some of these gamers that make them great collectibles, and they've seemed to appreciate in value, especially over the last 5 years. We've seen some of these pieces skyrocket.
Yeah, the market has certainly just skyrocketed in the last couple of years. I want to track back to that Barry Bonds bat you were showing because I feel like nowadays, not only is it the one Bonds used when tying Willie Mays, but he also broke the record. I feel like nowadays the Hall of Fame is on speed dial as soon as that tying home run is hit. They're like, we need that bat. Can we get that bat? I know they just did it with Vinny Pasquantino during the World Baseball Classic when they hit the 3 home runs in one game. He's like, no, I want to keep using this bat. So I think that's something that I don't know if that would happen nowadays. I think the Hall and the MLB authentication team would want to grab that and make sure that they have it for their collection. So I think that makes that even more special.
Yeah, no, I mean, it seems like everything's, hologrammed and dated and everything. Like, nothing gets by. And like I said, with like the jersey and some of this older stuff, it wasn't hologrammed or it wasn't tagged. So a lot of the fun in the hobby is the hunt, like
Hmm.
you find something, the guy used it, but it's the research behind it and uncovering a photo match and where it's like that aha moment, like, wow, I really have something here that was used and I can put it in a specific date or time that this was used by the player. And that's the fun part. I mean, if someone tells you right off the bat when it was used, it takes all the fun out of it for me, it seems.
Yeah, yeah, it's like opening up a mystery box. You never know what you're going to get. You just know this is getting used, but did he strike out 3 times or did he hit 3 home runs in a game? We'll have to find out.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that these items are just skyrocketing in value. And when you own stuff like this, it must kind of change how you think about risk. Obviously, I'm leading you on to stadium insurance, but was that something that you've had on your mind for a while? I know you've been in the insurance industry for a long time. Did that just kind of when the market was increasing exponentially, is that when kind of thought, maybe this is something I could dive into further? How did that whole idea come to be?
So what happened is 5 years ago, I've been in the insurance industry since I was 18 years old, and I had built a huge agency out here in California, and I've been doing it my whole life. I got a little burnt out, wanted to do something different. I sold that company, and I was too young to retire and just wanted to do something fun. That they always say, do what you love, or something you have a passion about. And all I knew was insurance. My father was in the insurance business. My brothers are in the insurance business. And, so I knew insurance inside and out, but I've been a collector my whole life as well. And I used to have a lot of fellow collectors ask me, well, how do you insure your collection? Or, I'm shipping something across the country and I don't have coverage and I'm freaking out because FedEx or USPS, the tracking's not showing any movement or anything like that. And I kind of had one of those moments, aha moments where like, hey, I could build out a product that's better than any other product on the market that meets the needs of the modern day collector, which not only covers fire, theft, and water damage, but also covers, shipping and transit, simplify the process, adding a mobile application where we make the process very simple, where you only have to take photos of like the high value items and you can catalog those yourself in a mobile app. And just kind of thought the process out and worked with a couple other collectors I know that have insurance backgrounds, and we built out stadium insurance. And it's been awesome. I have an excuse to go to all the shows now. I talk to all my buddies in the hobby all the time. It's business, but it's something I enjoy talking about. And I talk to all the customers. I mean, whenever someone has a question, I respond right away just because I love to hear what people collect. People collect trading cards, they collect autographs, they collect memorabilia, they collect game used bats. And it's a common thing amongst collectors. We really enjoy talking about what we have and what we purchased and where we found it and different connections in the hobby and connecting collectors with other collectors. It's just a really cool community, and everyone works together in this space, which is great. I've met so many people. I've learned a lot. I think with the tools out there like Facebook and Instagram, you can connect with anybody, and it's been great.
Yeah. Yeah. It is so fun just seeing what other people collect. I mean, we get it over here too with all kinds of submissions ranging from sports to non-sports. Gosh, are any coming to the top of your head for sports memorabilia or other kinds of cards that people submit?
I mean, we insure a lot of high end stuff. Not a month goes by where we don't insure an item that's in excess of $1 million, which is really surprising. Most of it's on the card side. There's a lot of very affluent people on the card side that have jumped into this space that are collecting cards that are $100,000 plus. That and they understand the value of insurance. I mean, it's you insure your car, you insure your jewelry, you insure your house. And a lot of these cases, these items are worth more than their car, their wife's engagement ring, or their house in some cases. And it's crazy not to protect it, especially when a lot of people are putting these items in FedEx envelopes and shipping them to PSA or shipping them across the country to be graded. You really need to protect what you have, because it'd be devastating if anything happened to your collection. So that's why we built this product out. But again, as far as, networking and knowing different collectors, I mean, I know John over at Resolution, but I've met tons of people in this space. I mean, if it'd be great to see more people get in the game use space. There's some very knowledgeable collectors out there, and I recommend use tools like Instagram and Facebook, and don't hesitate to reach out to other people and learn about it, and people will help you find what you're looking for.
Yeah, that's what I found too, especially Facebook groups. Like everyone's so supportive. Like, hey, I have this jersey. I can't tell if it's game used or not. And then it's like an army of people going through to try and share their information based on tagging, or see if they can find proof themselves. So it's really cool how the group just collectively unites on that front. Um, so it seems like it was a pretty easy sell when you tell people, "Hey, you insure all this, but you're not going to get your Mickey Mantle jersey insured. That's worth more than your house." So, I mean, were there some early challenges you faced, or when you kind of explain it to folks, people are like, "Oh my gosh, you're absolutely right. Like, I need to make sure I have this."
Now, the only challenges we had was on the technology side in the beginning,
Yeah.
building it out. But I'll tell you, we're a referral based business. I mean, I can't tell you, every day I'm getting referrals from different customers that, we all know each other in the space. And, whether it's on the cards or the Pokemon cards or the game used bats, I mean, every day we're insuring these massive collections, and, it's just crazy. Like I said, not to, we just have so much money tied up on this end with this stuff, and it keeps the hobby going. I mean, the ecosystem. I mean, God forbid something happens, there's a fire, there's a major theft. I could never rebuild the collection that I have. But if the insurance company came to me with a check for whether it's, $100,000 or $500,000, I'd be the first one back in the auction houses, or in the hobby, buying new stuff and keeping this ecosystem going. And I just think it's the prudent thing to do, is to have insurance on your collection. I know, we spend every dollar that we have in this space on collectibles, but you really need to protect yourself. And whether you buy it from us or from some other vendor out there that offers coverage, it's something you really should have.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned taking like photos to catalog items. Are you appraising items yourself? Are you working with other companies to do that? How do you kind of take stock of what's in someone's collection?
Yeah, good question. So what happens is when someone gets a quote from us for coverage, they pick the limit that they choose. For example, if they chose a $500,000 limit for their collection, we have them download the mobile application, and then we have them take a quick video of their collection. Not everything has to be in the video, but it gives us an idea of the scope of the collection that they have. And any high value item, which is an item over $25,000, we have them take a picture of the front and back of those items in the mobile app. And the reason why we do that is if there's a loss on a high value item, you don't have to chase finding, the receipt or the transaction when you bought it or anything like that. We've cataloged those items for you up front. So that takes a little burden off your plate, saying, yeah, I really did have a PSA 8 Michael Jordan 86 Fleer. Here's a picture of the front and back of it. We have it on file. But yeah, and then if there's a loss, we're contracted with a bunch of different auction houses. We consult with the appraiser over at PSA on any claims to settle the value of these. But there's so many tools out there now to get comps, and
Mm.
whether it's market movers for cards, or card ladder, or as far as collectibles, sales and auction houses, it's just the same way as collectors figure out comps on items when we're purchasing items.
Yeah. And can it be fluid too? Thinking someone like Shohei Ohtani, like if you had something early when he came over to the Angels, and then what he's done since with the Dodgers, his jersey has skyrocketed in value too. So does that kind of change the equation as well?
Yeah, so the insurance company, once you choose the limit, you can increase that limit at any point. the coverage is sold in tiers, whether it's 100,000, 200, 300, 500. We can go all the way up to 5 million. So there's a tier, and that's the limit we would pay out unless you increase that limit. But when there's a claim settled on an actual cash value basis. It's what the item's worth at the time of the loss. So if the item has gone up, we'll pay up to the current market value of that item, assuming you don't go over the coverage limit.
Great. Yeah. So obviously you tell folks to get their items insured. Is there any other advice in general that you have from your time in the hobby to pass along to folks?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great hobby. Yeah, I mean, the best thing to do is do your homework when you're collecting. I mean, I've been fortunate to meet some of the best collectors in the space. I mean, on Instagram, yeah, I would check out like Game Use Gamers. Mike runs that. He's one of the elite collectors out there. Tommy Ten's best bat collector out there in the hobby. West Side Collector, amazing collection, very high end stuff. And they put pictures of their bats on their Instagram page where, you can use those as a reference to find, use traits and stuff like that. There's was another one, Game Use, Doug over at Game Use, great collection, always posting great photos. And, I just recommend do your homework when you're collecting, have fun with it, but there's nothing worse than buying something that you think that's not real or not legit. It's funny, these athletes are creatures of habit. So tar patterns, go to Getty Images, look all over the place and do your homework before you buy something of significant value. And don't be afraid to reach out to these collectors like the ones that I mentioned. I mean, these guys are the best in the hobby and can really lead you in the right direction.
Yeah, it's a great piece of advice, especially to do your due diligence. If something looks too good to be true, make sure you're doing your homework beforehand because that could be the case. Yeah. Now, you mentioned that you've been going all over for card shows, and yeah, it sounds like work could be a boondoggle too. Where are some of the places that you've been to recently?
Yeah, so we make it a point to hit the West Coast Card Show every year down in the Burbank and Anaheim area. That's always a big show for us. A ton of traffic. Good for our business, get our name out there and branding. We just recently did the Arizona State Card Show, which was a blast. It was at Chase Field. They had a great show. They ran a great show and just a tremendous turnout at these shows. Of course, we go to the National every year. That's kind of the Super Bowl of sports collectibles. But yeah, we enjoy going out to the shows and being out there and interacting with our customers, interacting with the public, and let them know that's a service we offer. And, like I said, anybody's welcome to check out our website, stadiuminsurance.com, has my personal phone number on there. If you need anything, I'll reply to you right away. But, no, it's great. It's a great hobby. And for people like you guys that add content or posting content out there, it's great. I mean, the more education, the better. I know a lot of people are afraid to put their toe out in the water here in the game use space because, these things are very expensive, but it's also, people don't know where to find this stuff. And, like I said, do your homework, reach out to collectors and look at content like this that's put out by Resolution. It's pretty helpful in making your way here in the hobby.
Yeah, team sites have a lot of good stuff.
Right.
I know, yeah, for example, Seahawks auctions. I've been on there recently, gotten some good stuff from the Super Bowl campaign. So, yeah, always be sure to check there as well.
Nice. And there's nothing better than a photo match. I mean, COAs, letters of provenance and stuff like that. I'm not saying that everything can be photo match that's out there. I mean, there's plenty of good stuff that can't be photo match, but, there's nothing better than having an item photo match. I think that's the most important thing. You're actually putting the item in the athlete's hand. And I think those items carry a premium. If you go to resell an item, everyone prefers, something that's photo match or pays a premium for stuff that's photo match. I mean, there's nothing better than a photo of the item, whether it's the bat or the glove or the jersey being used or worn by that player. I just think if you're getting into the hobby, if you could buy something that's photo match, that's concrete evidence that it was used, and it outweighs any grade or any COA.
Totally. Yeah, it eliminates any doubt. Of course, it makes a big impact on, the valuation of the item, but also intrinsically. I think it's a lot more fun to have those, uh, the the knowledge of, hey, this was worn during this game, and look, I got the photos here to prove it. Here's the clip in which he's wearing my jersey or swinging my bat or anything. So yeah, I certainly think it elevates any collection.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that, I mean, like I said, I bought plenty of items up front and back in the pre 2000 that were not, photo matching wasn't even a thing. And going back and getting those bats photo matched added tremendous value to those items. But now that the evolution of photo matching has taken off, and I mean, I don't hesitate, even though I photo match items myself, I always get a letter attached to them. Just, you get that third party opinion, and God forbid something happens to me, or my family knows exactly what I had or what it's photo matched to, where, that you have, proof that it is what it is. So the fun part is doing the research, but having a company back it as a third opinion really helps. And, no, I enjoy, and like I said, I enjoyed the hunt. I enjoyed the research, and, it's been great.
Yeah. That brings to mind, have you had any items like, okay, the Bond's bat, he wrote right on it, made it easy for you. It was this home run, that home run. But have you had any items that you're like, maybe this was a spring training jersey or a bat used in batting practice, and then you go through and you're like, oh, hang on a sec. This was actually a lot more than that. Any big discoveries like that in your time?
Let's see. I mean, so I had a bat that I bought on eBay, that a Barry Bonds bat that I photo matched to his 300th home run. It wasn't sold to me as his 300th home run. I had another bat that I was watching highlights on TV one time when during his retirement. I noticed a mark on the highlights on a bat. I went back and pulled that bat from from storage, and I was like, man, it has the same mark on there, and it was his first home run as a Giant. So that was pretty cool. Um, Nothing really from spring training where I thought it was spring training and it
Hmm.
wasn't. Um, but like I bought stuff, recently that wasn't photo match, but prior to paying big dollars for the item, I was able to go through and find photos that reinforced my decision to buy the item, or that made me feel a lot better about the item, that it was matchable. And then, of course, I had a photo match letter put on it. But like I bought a Ricky Henderson MVP or game used jersey, which I have here. And and you look at the traits, and you would see like the front of the jersey just beat up with a bunch of loose threads
Hmm.
and wear, because he used to slide head first into the bases, and which easy to photo match. But yeah, this was from his MVP year, and you see the wash wear and stuff on these jerseys, and you know, you just look for certain traits, whether the ball marks, what type of ball marks are on the jerseys, you know, help determine if it was spring training or postseason. And over time, you just become very good at determining when something's used, or, if it looks right or doesn't look right. But there's been big discoveries as far as, taking older bats or jerseys that I purchased and photo matching them to events. And yeah, that's that's pretty much the extent of it. I mean, I had Barry Bonds Yankee Stadium home run bat, a few other items that we photo matched to big moments.
Yeah, I love seeing that Ricky Henderson jersey. That's got a ton of wear, the fraying threads, the puckering on the numbers too. I'm
Mm.
just like in my head going through all these great features. So yeah, those are cool. Gives a jersey some character.
Exactly. And when we were talking earlier about use, that's the big thing is, I mean, the more use, the better. I mean, amongst game use collectors, that's what they look for. They love they love the George Brett bats with the pine tar. They love the Pete Rose bats with the ringlet tape. They like the Barry Bonds bats with the crisscross tape. I mean, that's what people look for. Derek Jeter bats with a ton of tar, the white remnants on the tar from his batting gloves. You start seeing these traits in bats, and the more tar, the more wear. It's what collectors are after.
Yeah, yeah. I don't need nothing pristine. I don't need just an issued bat. I want something down and dirty. Yeah,
Exactly. That's what makes it fun is the different characteristics and the use. And you can't explain this stuff to people that aren't in the hobby. They think you're crazy, but it is really cool stuff.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk a little bit more about Barry Bonds because we know he's a controversial figure in baseball history. Um, are you of the opinion, banging on the doors of the Hall of Fame, he needs to get in? But yeah, what do you think on the matter?
You know, um, I think when you hear all the other baseball players that played during his era, you ask any of them who's the greatest player that ever played, it's Barry Bonds, hands down. I mean, never seen a player dominate the game like he did. I mean, they pitched to Shohei nowadays, but they didn't pitch to Barry Bonds. They pitched around him, just the walk. And he'd see one or two pitches a game and he did a home run. I mean, he didn't miss. I mean, it was unbelievable. I think a lot of it was, a lot of people didn't like his personality or, maybe how he treated the media at the time, but it was must watch TV. I mean, we go to the ballpark with all the light bulbs flashing. Nobody went to the concessions or the restrooms when he was coming up to bat. He changed the game. And so to me, he's the greatest baseball player I've ever lived. And that's why I collect a lot of the stuff he has and what he does off the field or how he treats the media. And that's not my place to judge. And, he was a baseball player and entertained the fans and guy was dominant. And as far as the Hall of Fame, if he gets in or not, it really doesn't matter to me. I mean, I think a lot of guys are more famous for not being in the Hall of Fame than being in the Hall of Fame. I mean, Pete Rose or Shoeless Joe Jackson doesn't seem to alter the value of their stuff. And every time the election comes up, their name is discussed because people talk about him not being in the Hall of Fame. So there's other players that got in the Hall of Fame first out that nobody talks about anymore. So that's just my personal feeling. But yeah, to me, you collect what you enjoy. And to me, he was the best baseball player I'd ever seen, the most dominant. So doesn't sway my decision whether I collect his memorabilia or not.
Yeah, you can't tell the story of baseball without Barry Bonds. I mean, it he wasn't the only one doing it at the time. There were a ton of other players, and yet he still had to make contact with the ball every single time. And you're right, getting those limited opportunities, just a handful of pitches a game. I mean, he was so feared they would intentionally walk him with the bases loaded. I mean, yeah, no one commanded that kind of power that Bonds did. So, uh, yeah, I'd like to see the Hall of Fame wisen up and throw him in there. But you're right. I don't think it really matters. At the end, it doesn't change the incredible career that he put together.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, for sure. I agree with you. And again, at the end of the day, you collect what you like. And
Mhm.
so whether he is in the Hall of Fame or not doesn't make a difference. And his bats sell for big money. I mean, his sand bats are selling for 75 to $100,000 from the 2001 season. I've seen other bats sell in excess of $50,000, and so there's only a few players that command that premium for these items. I mean, there's a few Ken Griffey Jr. bats of home run bats recently have gotten really hot. Um, there's certain bats that are like that, but Otani's bats go for big money. But there's not many players in the hobby that you could get $50,000 to $100,000 for their bats.
Yeah. Now I've got to ask because it looks like a lot of the items you have, maybe you bought them and they were already signed. But if you have something that's unsigned, I know some people can be really particular about that kind of stuff. Do you worry about, oh, I want to leave this jersey as it is?
Yeah.
Don't get their signature on it, or are you like, hey, this really enhances the value? Do you have a strong lean?
That's a tough one. It's personal preference. And I ask people that all the time too, because I have some items that are unsigned and like whether I should get them signed or not. Um, I like the item signed. I've kind of added validation to the item that the player used it. I prefer to have it signed, but it's a personal preference. I mean, I think heard you guys discuss this before. As long as they're not signed over the use or the photo match characteristics that you're using for a photo match, I prefer to have it signed. But I don't think you can go wrong either way. But to me, a signature on it is kind of like the validation stamp that it's final, that it really did use the piece. And but it's really personal preference. I don't think if someone wants an item bad enough, they don't care if it's signed or not.
Yeah.
You know.
Have you had any interactions with players when you bring memorabilia to them to get it signed, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe this glove found its way back to me," or "I remember like this is how I taped all my bats," or anything like that?
Yeah. Who did I have? I brought a jersey to Roger Clemens and showed it to him. And it had it said Clemens in the collar and the year. And I asked him, "Hey, did you write this in the collar?" And he said, "Yeah, that's one of mine." And he looked over the jersey and he kind of showed me there's blood on the back collar from, on the back shoulder from blisters. He was explaining to me, um, what else did I bring to players? I had Drew Brees sign his last career win jersey. He kind of tripped out over that. And then he signed and dated it, final career win. That was pretty cool. Um, I've had some players sign items and just not care whether it was, you try and tell. To me, it was a big deal. Like, hey, this is your jersey that you used when such and such, and they just didn't care. But it is pretty cool when the players see certain things like bats and put them in their hands and swing them around and admire. Like, yeah, that's one of mine. Um, but yeah, I like having the items signed, and I've had some good interactions with players when showing them the items.
Yeah, very cool. It's a lot more fun when they're into it as well, and not just like, yeah, this was a bat I used, so what? Like it's nice when they have a connection to those pieces.
For sure, for sure. And a lot of the players back in the, like in the 80s and 90s didn't really even keep their stuff. I mean, Cal Ripken did. That's how I got his glove. I mean, he kept every piece. And then Barry Bonds after 2000 started, marking every piece and putting aside every piece from jerseys, gloves, cleats. And I know that there's a bunch of stuff that has been sold in auctions over the years, but players are more cautious now or conscious of the values of these items and are starting to catalog them. But the earlier stuff, players, would give them away, or the clubhouse guy would sell them, or the teams would sell them. And so when you reunite it with the player and they see it and they haven't seen the item for 20 or 30 years, it's pretty cool to share those with them.
Yeah, teams and leagues are definitely getting much better at that. MLB authentication comes to mind with their holograms, but it's something we've seen too. Like, hey, maybe this bat was broken on this date, but that's just a date it was taken out of circulation. You can go back to a week prior, and he hit a home run or two with the same bat, but that wasn't necessarily included. So sometimes there's still meat on the bone, which is fun to discover.
Exactly. No, that's the truth. I mean, it is funny. Like you get some stuff. MLB hologram, typically it's like the last day it was in use. So like you said, you go back and sometimes you could track it back. I had an A-Rod bat that's MLB authenticated to the day it was cracked. And then you track it back like 3 or 4 games, and it's the home run he hit to pass Ken Griffey Jr. on the all-time home run list. So that's kind of a big bet too, a bat I really like. And it was sold as a cracked MLB bat signed by Alex Rodriguez. And then we uncovered that it was used in the home run. I think it's like 631, 632 to Ken Griffey Jr., which was a former teammate of his. And that made the bat, significantly more in value and much more desirable.
Yeah, that's a massive discovery. You mentioned some of the football players that you've collected. You mentioned Drew Brees, Barry Sanders. Are there some other, big statue-esque players in your collection?
Yeah, I have Jerry Rice's game worn jersey he wore on Monday Night Football when they retired Joe Montana's jersey. And it was the last game. It was his first game back from after the knee surgery. And it was kind of a goal of his to make it back for Monday Night Football when they retired Joe Montana's jersey. And it just happened to be when he scored his 1,000th point, which was a milestone.
Yeah.
I bought the jersey, but it wasn't sold as his 1,000th point. It just said comeback game. Jerry Rice wrote on it comeback game when he scored the jersey. And so that's a good one. Again, San Francisco Bay Area legend. And so that's a cool jersey. And then I also have, I just picked up an Emmitt Smith game worn jersey that was used for a touchdown, 1 in 3 games. And with football, the unique thing is that they only play 18 games a year, right around there. So how many jerseys could they wear? I mean, there's Barry Sanders jerseys I wore the entire season. So it really cuts down on the number of games that or opportunities to get a game worn jersey. So I have Emmett, Barry Sanders, Jerry Rice, Drew Brees. I was just a big fan of Drew Brees. I think that it's just I met him a few times, an incredible person. Try and buy items of players that are likable. And yeah, those are kind of the pillars that I have. Still in search of a Tom Brady game one jersey.
Yeah.
But there's a couple other big name players I'd like to add to the collection.
I'm sensing an affinity for the offensive side of the ball. Any defensive players that either you have or that you're wanting to acquire?
Well, it's funny you say that. Like in football, the jerseys that are worth the money are typically running backs and quarterbacks. I mean, that's where the money is. That's where people buy. And so, I mean, defense is probably one of the most important parts of the field during these games, but people don't buy defensive players really, or don't see a lot of value in those. It's a quarterback in the hobby. It's a quarterback, just like cards. It's the quarterback and the running back and the wide receivers that sell for a premium. In baseball, it's the home run hitters. I mean, people do enjoy, Tony Gwynn, Wade Boggs, uh, that's, but it's the big power hitters where the items sell for a premium. Um, it's I guess that's what sells, or that's what people collect, and that's what they remember. But it's definitely on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, similar to what we hear in the sports talk media, the biggest question being quarterbacks, always debating quarterbacks on first take or wide receivers, running backs, that sort of thing. So it's funny how those go hand in hand. But you mentioned MLB, NFL kind of being the main sports. Are there any other leagues that you collect from, or even any non-sports items that you have?
Well, I'd love to get into basketball. Everybody wants a Jordan jersey, but those seem to have gotten out of reach in price, especially if they're photo match. Modern basketball, the guys seem to be switching out jerseys every game now. And that kind of doesn't appeal to me. I'd love to buy a Steph Curry jersey, but they're plentiful out there. So I'd love to get some more basketball stuff, but it's just, I haven't found the right piece yet. But one thing I did buy that I did have photo match, I was a big boxing fan, and I've had Mike Tyson fight worn trunks. I had fight worn shoes by Mike Tyson, but I had a belt come up for sale, and it was a Oscar De La Hoya belt that Oscar De La Hoya owned, that he won. And then when he fought Sugar Shane Mosley and lost the fight, then Sugar Shane Mosley took the belt, and then the belt came from Mosley's camp, and it's actually here's a belt.
Oh, wow. Oh,
And I actually had you guys photo match it. And we have it photo matched to In the Ring. It was actually the one that was in the ring. De La Hoya, we have it photo matched to De La Hoya when he won it. And then we have it photo matched to Shane Mosley when the belt was handed over to him and he won the belt. So it's something different, from a boxing to have someone's world championship belt. So that's a pretty cool piece. So that's something different. Um, I have like Jack Nicklaus game. I know you don't call it game worn, match worn glove, Tiger Woods match worn glove. And then as far as hockey, again, Gretzky's king. Would love to buy a Gretzky jersey. I think there's one in Golden right now. It's already up to 750,000. So I don't think my wife would let me sell the house to buy it. So I think that one might be off limits too. But Jordan, Gretzky, Brady, you can't go wrong with buying the goats. And, anything like that, I'm open to trade or buy if it's not unrealistic when someone's asking for it.
Yeah, that is a tall ask for that Gretzky jersey. Probably a good decision to not bring that up to the wife.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, there's cool pieces out there, and I mean, people collect movie memorabilia now. I'm not into it, but there's stuff out there, and yeah, it's just constantly expanding the search.
Yeah, is there any White Whale Barry Bonds memorabilia that you look out for, or?
Not really, honestly, I pretty much had everything that I thought that I would have wanted. I mean, early Pirates jerseys, those are going to always be a premium. I've rookie game worn bats or game used bats. I've had several sand bats over the years. Um, I've had several of his gloves. World Series glove that I showed earlier kind of takes the cake for me. So I've kept my favorite Sandbat. I've kept my favorite Bond jerseys. I've owned several gloves, but that's my favorite glove. I have a couple batting helmets that are important to me, but really, I know Gary has some stuff in his personal collection that'll probably never see the light or in collector's hands, but pretty much have everything I was looking for as far as bonds, and that's why I've kind of expanded out to different things now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's cool to branch out. I hope you're able to find some Gretzky, Brady, and more within
Yeah,
reasonable
eventually.
figures in the near future. Yeah,
Yeah, eventually. But yeah, no, it's always like I said, buy the goats, buy the statues. That's the way to to really secure a good investment for the future. And this stuff is appreciated like crazy over the last 10, 20 years since I've been doing it. I mean, it's insane. I could never, it'd be hard to jump back in from zero, like I was saying earlier. That's why I insure my stuff, because this stuff is worth so much money, and the entry point into the hobby is so high now, especially in the game use side for quality pieces. That's why we insure our items.
yeah. It's an ever changing landscape. It feels like we're hearing news about a new record every month, whether it be a card or
Right.
game use piece or anything. So, um, yeah, yeah. There's always something going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's true.
Well, Dan, this has been a lot of fun. Before I let you go, I want to make sure I give you one last opportunity to tell folks where they can learn and find more information about Stadium Insurance.
Yeah. So, stadiuminsurance.com. That's the easiest way. You can go on there. You can get a quote right through the website. It's very simple. Ask you a few questions. It'll give you what the premium is based on the level of coverage you choose. Our phone number's on there. You can call that number. One of our team members will answer the phone. Um, we have a mobile app, Stadium Insurance mobile app. We're on Instagram at Stadium Insurance. But the best way to do it is go to www.stadiuminsurance.com and click to get a quote. And very simple process.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll put that link in the description for everyone so they can make sure to check it out.
Right.
Yeah, these pieces are massive. So it's certainly important to have that peace of mind with you guys, making sure that in the event anything ever happens, you're prepared. So very cool to hear about how you launched Stadium Insurance and of course your time in the hobby. Thanks for sharing your unique perspective today.
No, great talking to you. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care, Dan.
You too.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in to another episode. Be sure to subscribe and follow our social channels so you don't miss anything. We'll see you again next Thursday for another episode of the Game Use Podcast by Resolution Photo Matching. Take care, everyone.